Well, hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're making some pumpkin candle holders. Well, today's episode of the show is brought to you by my favorite season, Halloween. Now guys, these are simple little candle holders. They are meant to hold tea lights, but not the ones you light on fire. We're talking about the tea lights that are battery operated. I'm hoping that they will be able to be disassembled for storage. We're gonna see how that goes. I'm not really sure how this project is gonna work out, but we need to make some templates, and it all starts off with some 1/4-inch thick hardboard. Well, the hardboard that I'm starting with is measuring 4 inches by 4 inches. And the very first thing that I want to do is I want to mark a center point, and right from that center point, I'm going to draw out a circle that will measure 3.5 inches in diameter. Now, what we're going to do from here is right at that center point on our circle, we're going to draw a center line right across our circle like this. We're going to do it for that plane and 90 degrees to that plane, so right here. And as well, on a 45, we're going to bring it in on both sides, or both 45s, I should say, passing right through our center point, right where those two lines intersect, like that. And then one on this side here, passing right through our center point. All right, now this here is pretty much the layout of the base and the lid of our pumpkin holder. The problem is that, well, it's not really a problem, but we need to cut some slots here in order to house our pumpkin sections. You'll understand that in just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is measuring out from each one of these lines, I'm going to measure out 1/8 of an inch on either side and draw a line, just maybe about, I don't know, let's say 1/2 inch in. So 1/2 inch in on each one of our lines, you will end up with a 1/4 inch by 1/2 inch sections centered on the lines we just drew. I know that sounds confusing, but let me get it drawn and I'll show you what it looks like. All right, and this is what you should have at this point in time. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take this over to the scroll saw. We're going to cut out each of these little notches here, these 1/4 inch by 1/2 inch notches. We have 8 of them all together, and then we're going to cut around the perimeter. I'm not going to cut tight up to the line on these. I'm going to cut just outside, and then I can take it over to the belt sander and clean it up to get a perfect circle. You have to remember, this is a template, so any imperfections in this are going to transfer on to every cutting you do from here on in. So cut this out and make it as perfect as you can. It doesn't have to be super perfect, but do your best. So it looks like this. Now guys, this is the template for both the top and the bottom piece. The only thing that's left to do here is dead in the center, right there at those intersecting lines, we're going to drill a 3/16 diameter hole. That will help us mark the center on our top and bottom pieces when we cut it. Now, here comes the weird part, or the difficult part, or what could be the difficult part, and that is drawing the sides of the pumpkin. And I tried to play around with it, with the dimensions rather, of what size I want it, and I think I want the pumpkin to be 3.5 inches tall in total. So that is what this measures right here. Now the first thing that I've done, this is the bottom of the pumpkin here. So I've drawn a 1/2 inch line. Now that 1/2 inch line here along this edge, that represents how far in our pumpkin will sink into our notch. And you know what? In looking at this, I've sketched out this pumpkin here, but I don't really like it. The reason I don't like it is because after I just did this here to show you. I think it's going to look really too oblong. It's going to be like some squished pumpkin. It's going to look like it got run over by a car. So I'm going to actually change this. And like I said, guys, this project is all freehand stuff. So we're just going to take this out here like that. We're going to shorten this. I kind of like the shape I came up with there. I'm not sure. And we're going to come down and then bring it back up, just like that. All right, and I think that will be our pumpkin shape. However, what we're going to need now is a line 1/4 of an inch down from this edge and 1/4 of an inch up from this edge. But before I do any of that, let me get a couple of these cut out so that I can test it against our side profile of our template to see if I like the size and shape. So let me get this cut and I'll see you when I get that done. All right, so what I ended up with, I'm gonna try to hold this together to show you, is this. What's the top? That's the top. I'm getting confused. Okay, so this is what we end up with. So this is kind of our pumpkin shape. Now, guys, what we're going to do is from each one of our pumpkin shapes here, or just one actually, because we need a template, won't be that one, we'll use this one. We're going to measure down 1/4 of an inch down from here, 1/4 of an inch from this corner, and we're going to draw a square line. At some point in time then, what we're going to do is we're going to measure the distance between those two lines, mark the center, and draw an arch here of that dimension. And with that done, we can cut that center circle out over at the scroll saw. Those are our two templates for each one of our pumpkin lights, minus that 3/16 diameter hole that I still need to drill. So guys, what we're going to do is for each one of our pumpkins, we are going to need 8 of these pieces right here and 2 of these. You can use any 1/4 inch thick stock you want, whether it be hardboard like this or whether it be just scrap walnut, scrap maple, whatever you have on hand will work just fine. So mark your center hole here, cut out your pieces, and I'll see you when you get those done. Well, we now need to assemble this, and what I would suggest is, I'm telling you, this is more finicky than I thought it was going to be. Things are shifting, things are moving. It's not as easy as, yeah, just stick this piece here. So what I would suggest is to get 2 sides, just like this, put into your center hubs, and just get a rubber band on it to hold it in place. Now, guys, once you get that done, I would add some other layers. Now, another suggestion I would give is that when cutting these slots, I would err on the side of cutting them too small. Every single one of mine is a little too large, and it makes for a very finicky assembly, a very finicky installation. So I guess my original idea of wanting this thing to be just friction fit and held together is not really going to work for me, but that's okay. This project will still work anyway. So we're going to put all these pieces in here. Now I said all of my slots were too tight, and then this last one here is giving me a hard time, or sorry, we're too loose. And this last one here is giving me a hard time because it's too tight. So we're just going to file this just a little bit. And once we get all of our side pieces in, guys, we can put a rubber band around this, and I'll show you what it looks like at this point. And there is our pumpkin. Now, there's one more thing to add to this, and that will be the stem. Now, truth be told, I wish I would have cut the hole for it earlier. What a nightmare it's been to try to put this together just by myself. I should have really had somebody come out and help me. A second set of hands would be really helpful. But I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to mark out what I think will look good for a stem. We're going to make it kind of a mortise and tenon thing, where we'll cut a square here, we'll glue our stem in place, and guys, from there we need to glue this together. Now, what I would suggest is for each one of these pieces, I would pull this out just a little bit, put some wood glue in the hole, and let it slide back into place and adjust it. Then do the same thing for the bottom, pull it out from the slot, put a little bit of wood glue in there, and then let it go back in place. Do that for all 8 and then put that aside and let it dry. Once we get that done, we need to paint these, believe it or not. I know you don't see paint very often on my show, but these ones are going to be painted. So I'll show you how I'm going to do that. So there is my stem drawn out, and it just ends up with a little 1/4 inch deep and a 3/8 wide tenon, and that will go into a cut mortise here into my template. So I'm going to mark this out on the one that I just disassembled, and we'll cut that out and get our stem in place, and then we can glue this all together. Well, at this point with my pumpkins glued together, there isn't really much I can do until they're completely dry. This one here is dry, so I still have to wait for the other two. Now I want to paint these black, and I want to use spray paint, but if you guys have ever worked with hardboard before, it is the absolute worst for accepting paint. It just soaks in and soaks in and soaks in and never seems to stop. So we're going to seal this. This is a very common product that you can use for crafting, Mod Podge. So we are going to coat these all over with a couple generous coats of Mod Podge. Don't worry if you get texture from the Mod Podge. That's actually a good thing. You guys have seen me use this before. I used it to get texture on the water in my ships in a bottle build. But either way, we're going to give these a couple good coats of Mod Podge, and once we get that done, we're going to spray paint them black. And when I get all of that done, I don't think we need a video of painting. So when I get all of that done, I'll come back and show you what we ended up with for the final product. Well, it's been a week, and what I've done is I ended up only giving this one coat of the Mod Podge, and I don't know if you can see the texture there. I coated it on thick to make sure that it sealed all of the hardboard, but I left all the brush strokes and globs and that sort of thing because it gives it a really cool texture. It doesn't have to be smooth. Pumpkins are not smooth. That being said, pumpkins are not black either. But I did give this a coat of black spray paint, and these are our finished pumpkins, guys. Now, the last thing to finish it off would be some of these, and this is a battery operated candle and a little tea light. You can get these at your local dollar store. These ones here are a little bit over on the higher end of them, where they actually, this outer shell is actually wax, so it gives it a little bit more of a realistic look. And you can just turn on these candles and place them inside each one of your pumpkins, and there you go. You know what? Let me shut off the lights to the shop and I'll show you how these look with the lights dimmed, and you can get a better idea. And look at that. Guys, these look good. They're really cool. They're kind of spooky. I love the way the texture looks on them. The black pumpkins with our candles there glowing in the middle. They're just a fun fall or Halloween decoration. Very easy to make, very easy to pump out several of them in an afternoon. Guys, just a fun all-around project. And there you have it. Halloween pumpkin tea light candle holders. Guys, this project is so simple and so quick, and it really leaves a lot of room for you to get creative. The pattern isn't a pattern. I didn't create a pattern for this. I created one side of a pumpkin with a template with a couple simple measurements, and I created circles on the bottom with slots. This is not a pattern. The stem was just freehand sketched out. I'm sure there are a lot of you out there that could do even better. If you're not 100% sure, or you're not sure how to sketch out that pattern, get a printout of a pumpkin from the internet and trace around the outer edges. It's not that difficult. This is a simple project. It's meant to be fun. It's meant to be artistic. It's meant to give you a little bit of freedom as far as not being so adhered to a specific pattern or specific measurements or specific lines. If you accidentally cut outside or inside the lines of the pumpkin, who cares? When have you seen a pumpkin that is 100% perfectly symmetrical? This is a fantastic and fun project, and it's a great one to get the young ones involved with as an introduction to the scroll saw, because guys, as I said, it doesn't matter if you deviate from those lines that you trace out. It's still going to work. The project's still going to work, and it's still going to look great. Now, with that being said, cutting this hardboard or MDF or anything like that on the scroll saw, while you should be wearing some form of dust mask anyway on the scroll saw, it is imperative to be using it with this stuff. This hardboard is nasty. It is nothing more than sawdust and glue, and that dust is fine and it gets in the air. You're sucking it in. Guys, get a dust mask on while you're working on the scroll saw. Don't think because it's not a high-powered tool that it doesn't have the ability to damage your respiratory system, because the opposite actually is the case here. That dust is kind of floating in the air around the scroll saw because it does not have the wicked power to blow it away, and there's no dust collection to suck it into a collector. So it's all just sitting there, and your face is right there working on these patterns. So there's a huge, huge risk as far as breathing it in. And even for me, after years of working on the scroll saw, it wasn't till years of working on it that I realized, holy crow, this thing is really producing a lot of dust that I suck in. So it wasn't until then that I started using the mask. But I'm telling you now, get one on, you'll be a lot happier for it. As well, if you don't have hardboard, who cares? Don't use hardboard. If you have scrap 1/4-inch ply, use scrap 1/4-inch ply. If you have scrap 1/4-inch walnut, maple, poplar, cherry, doesn't matter, pine, make it out of that. If you don't want to paint it, don't paint it. If you don't have the Mod Podge and you don't like the texture, then don't do it. This project has so many options to be modified. It's not even funny. Don't paint them black. Paint them orange with a green stem. Paint them however you want. The main thing is that at least you paint them. At least you do something. At least you attempt the project and have a little bit of fun for Halloween in your shop. Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in this week. Once again, I've had a lot of fun with this. This has been a great little fun project. My wife absolutely loves these little things. So why not? It's a win-win situation. I had some fun out here in the shop, and she gets some cute little candle holders that she loves. If you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. You click the bell and then you won't miss the notifications of future episodes of the program. Guys, I want to thank you for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed the content. I really hope you're going to try this one for yourself and get some of these made for your fall and Halloween season. And more importantly, I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another woodworking video.